Hey, Sulani, how you doing?
Doing fine. Just
Yeah.
trying to wake up.
Uh, we were talking about you and the goats. Um, who was it? I think Betsy Wilkerson and Lori Kinnear, I think they came out to visit. Did they come out to visit you? Or see the goats in action?
I think so. I think Craig was,
Craig had them. Yeah.
yeah, I think Craig and Betsy came out. And Craig and Betsy and Brian were all responded to my plea to Lori. We were out of campaign sign stakes because Craig needed them to put up the warning signs. And Lori, I need some stakes. So she rounded some up from her fellow council people.
Well, it sounded like a productive visit. I need to get them out to Hutton and do some work out there. We got a lot of vegetation growing.
We've been out there before. We'd be happy to come back.
All right. Well, we'll connect up. I'll connect up with them. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Well, good morning. I think it's 9 straight up. We'll get rolling. The goal is to be done by 10. And so those that'll be joining in as we go. The first part's just sort of your standard Zoom business, and that's sort of the ground rules as we go into this, just to make sure that we get a great opportunity to have both of our featured presenters today speak. Mayor Woodward, as well as Executive Director of Family Promise of Spokane, Joe Ader, will be on, and I don't want to cut either of them, because I think what you're going to find is a lot of value, insight, and some shifts that are going on, and pivoting that's going on out in the community. So I think there's some progress being made, a lot to go, but I don't want to cut them short. So if you have any questions along the way, please use chat. For those, we'll be monitoring. This is recorded, so I've been trying to capture the chat and following up with those that have had questions before. It's not perfect, but it does work. And then if we have time for the question and answer session, please use the raise hand and we'll do our best at facilitating and moderating that. The goal of this group, for those that are new, is purely modeled after the neighborhood council model. And really what that neighborhood council does is brings the city of Spokane down to that micro level within the neighborhood in order to best assist the city agencies in determining priority needs. The one thing that I think we all found last year was that from the commercial property, maybe business side, sometimes our voices aren't best represented. So this is an opportunity for us at least to come together, share our concerns and ideas, thoughts, suggestions, and have a flow of communication that helps us all. This is a community issue. Just an update on participants. I think we're over 330 on Facebook, and we're just over 200 on our email distribution. We have transitioned into another phase, and that's we got a smaller group, and we're trying to model this after San Diego's private public impact on homelessness. They had what they called a Tuesday group that got together on a Tuesday basis. It was like 6 to 10 business leaders that really tried to drive it. And no agenda, no politics, purely trying to work on what we're doing, which is be the cleanest and safest city in the US. That is the goal. The biggest thing with this group, I think, is we've taken on education to understand the problem, and that we continue to advocate and educate our elected officials, those making policy and those establishing budget. So we'll continue that on. I'd ask if you aren't on mute, if you don't mind on mute, just so we can focus on this. Okay. So that we're meeting the second Wednesday of each month at 9 a.m. That might not be the best time, I'm finding out. It was the best time for the group back in, I think when we did a poll back in March. We'll continue on that now for the sake of just having it in our calendars. Communication is email, Facebook, all the above. But if you know anyone that wants to be part of this group, send them my way. I will put them on email on the list. If they're in Facebook, the group is Spokane Business and Commercial Property Council. So please join in. There's some dialogue going there. Over this last month, we've had conversations. We've been invited to the East Sprague Business Association to share what we're doing. We were at the Riverside Neighborhood Council, I think that was back in April, presented to the Spokane Association of Realtors, Government Affairs Committee. Visit Spokane, and I want to share something I'm going to do. This is something I'll just highlight real quick. Visit Spokane did something that I'm proud of Meg Winchester for stepping up and leading this initiative, because what it did is she tried to put several of us in the eyes of what a convention planner manager is looking at when they come to Spokane to determine whether Spokane is where they want to house their convention. And so she had a group, I think there was about 25, 30 of us. I want to shout out to Mark Carlos. He is the legislative aide to Councilmember Wilkerson, as well as Councilmember Cathcart. They attended, but we went out and we drove it was a tour, and it was in the eyes of what they see. And so we saw a lot of what we're talking about, Brown Street Viaduct, Madison and Second, things like that. But that was powerful, but what was really powerful is this right here. And this was a conversation we had. Really, it was led by Mayor Woodward presentation, but it spurred on a great conversation. And really, it was a conversation about what we all want. We want to be the cleanest and safest city in Spokane, in the U.S. And it was just a great conversation, but this is what's needed, because it's not politics. It's purely what is best for Spokane. And so shout out to Meg and to those that really took a see, did that, I don't know if that shared or not. I apologize if I didn't share the right screen, but that is stuff that we need to do as Spokane. This is a community issue. We can't count on our elected officials to take care of all of this. We're in it together. You can see the other things. We had a visit with GSI. They had a couple broken big windows. We wanted to visit them, and Councilmember Wilkerson and Councilmember Kinnear were there. And then I presented to a leadership forum as well. So we're out there, and everybody has the same desire, and that is wanting what's best for our community, feeling like there isn't that voice out there. And I feel like this group is really helping leverage and put the spotlight on it. Call to action from this group, it's power in numbers. If we have the more, the better. There's a lot of ideas out there, a lot of education to be had, but share the message, get the number, the contacts to me, and we'll put them in the distribution list. Report all crime. I know that sometimes we feel like it's fallen on deaf ears, but it's not. It has to be recorded. They might not be responding or be able to respond quickly, but if it's not being counted, it's not being measured, and we need to know. Engage on Facebook. For the Sheldon Jacksons of the world that aren't on Facebook, hey, I get it. But you know what? For those that are, jump on this. There's good conversations going, and this is where a lot of ideas are being generated. And then I'd ask or challenge you to, to advocate or testify. Right now, I know the city of Spokane has really taken on it's reimagined public safety. There's a lot. It's the beginning of the conversation. I get it, but there's a concern that we're not at the table. Business people aren't at the table. So that's a piece of it. Decriminalization of drugs. I think we're seeing that on the streets right now, and what's going on there with what happened out of the legislation and the Supreme Court ruling. So we need to make sure that our electeds are aware of what's really happening on the streets. And then I truly feel, and you're going to hear from the mayor in just a bit, but I feel like a stake has been put in the ground, and we're only going to move forward from that stake. And I'm excited. We have a long ways to go, but if we don't try, we don't get there. And I do feel like last week she made a major announcement. I'm proud of what she did, what she stood up for, and I think we're going to see some momentum, but it's going to take all of us working together. And I want to say next month, the head of the Spokane Police Department gang unit will be presenting. I think we're going to see some scary trend numbers and some issues that are coming because of our drug-friendly state and what that's bringing to us. So Adam Valdez will be with us next month. With that, I want to kick it over. I want to maximize the time, but Mayor Woodward has been in office just about almost a year and a half. And the majority of that time we've been dealing with the pandemic, but also the majority of that time we've been dealing with the growing challenges with homelessness that we've all seen. And last week she was able to announce at a press conference down at the Cannon Street shelter some pretty bold action plans that I feel that are going to shift and take us to a point where we're going to be taking care of those that are in need. We're also going to be in a position where we can enforce the law on a consistent and regular basis. But then there's going to be some mitigation things too that I think are going to help clean our city up. So without any more conversation from me, I would like to turn it over to the City of Spokane Mayor, Nadine Woodward. Mayor?
Hey, Chad, it's Brian Coddington. Can you give me the ability to share? And I'm just going to start with a quick video.
That should do it. I'm not the most tech, and my right-hand person, Jesse Lowry, is not with me today helping me. Did you get it?
I got it.
Makes me feel good.
Let's see if I can find.
Not that big a deal. I'm not going to charge against the building. If you don't know offhand, I'll track it down.
This is what I want to share. Of course, network error. Can you hear the audio?
I cannot hear it.
Okay. Just a second here.
Looks like I can hear the ocean though. Anybody else got that?
Yep.
There we go.
All right, I think we're ready to start. Thank you all for being here, joining us for an update of our plan to evolve the region's homelessness system. So we have accomplished a lot over the past year as we fundamentally shift how we transition people out of homelessness. That shift has occurred while we have simultaneously worked together to meet unexpected and constantly evolving pandemic needs with an eye towards strengthening our system for the long term. So today we're focused on our external regional partners that are transforming our approach to homelessness. Of course, as a city organization, the administration and the city council continue to work in close.
Apologies, that's the wrong video. Hold, please. I had this all queued up and for some reason it went off the screen. There we go.
So we have accomplished a lot over the past year as we fundamentally shift how we transition people out of homelessness.
Spokane's mayor says it's time for a change in the ways we resolve the region's homeless problem. Today, Woodward announced a new, more collaborative focus on the types of resources that can help an individual take control of their path out of homelessness.
Identifying those who are ready to take the next step and connect them to intensive wraparound services.
The Salvation Army will offer those life-changing services through a new referral-based, resource-intensive bridge housing program. It'll be happening this fall here at the Way Out Shelter on Mission.
By coming to us, we're going to interview them and get a chance to talk to them, make sure that this is the path they want to take, and then we're going to help move mountains for them, get them into substance abuse prevention. We're going to help them get the training they need so they can get a job, teaching them how to be consistent in just daily life.
In another improvement, plans call for operating the Cannon Shelter year-round, providing both guests and staff more consistency and stability.
Not only are we creating relationships with these individuals, we're guiding them to the right place. We're nurturing them while they are navigating the systems that are afforded them to get into a better situation.
And just last month, Volunteers of America created more safe space for women at its new Hope House location. The regional collaborative also secured funding for a new young adult shelter ages 18 to 24. That shelter is temporarily operating at the Women's Hearth with the goal of moving out of downtown and close to vocational training at Spokane Community College.
Early intervention means a new life for these individuals and reduces the long-term impact of homelessness on our community and our regional system. VOA is really excited to be part of a regional approach that addresses and resolves homelessness, and we're here for the long haul.
That regional approach could be a game changer. Both Spokane County and Spokane Valley now contributing time and money toward shelter solutions.
These investments were made to meet immediate needs. They were also a chance to better prepare our region to transition people out of homelessness beyond the pandemic needs.
Finally, the mayor is immediately expanding the efforts of litter crews and controlling the sources of waste and graffiti. The city is also piloting an alleyway activation partnership with DSP and Spokane Arts to encourage positive activities to help accelerate downtown Spokane's economic recovery. Jeff Humphrey, City Cable 5.
So thank you for bearing with me. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Woodward to continue our presentation.
Thank you, Brian. And thank you, everyone, on this meeting. I just want to say I really admire the work that you've done to bring people together to address this issue. The city of Spokane cannot do this on its own. I think it's great that you are going to the extent that you have and continue to learn more about this very complex issue, visiting the shelters yourself, talking to the providers, understanding how it's being addressed here, but also understanding how complex it is that even the providers don't all agree on how to address this issue. You know, I've said all along that homelessness is not a city of Spokane issue, it's a regional issue, and we have to get our regional partners at the table to have these discussions, which we are. I think that's one of the silver linings of COVID, is that we were forced to work with our regional partners to address a global health pandemic, but that also set the framework for how we're addressing homelessness and other issues moving forward. I've also said that, and I still believe that we're not going to solve homelessness, but we have to do a better job of managing homelessness. And what I mean by that is leveraging partnerships and the resources and the assets we have to do a much better job of how we address this issue and actually transition and shift to use our resources to move people out of homelessness, not just keep them where they are. So the announcement on Thursday with our regional partners was a pretty powerful one. We announced a fundamental shift in how we're moving people out of homelessness with the shelters that we have in our regional system. So that includes Cannon Shelter, which is by Brown's Addition neighborhood. That has been for the last several years, a facility that's been used just during the winter months as a warming center. We're transitioning that facility into a year-round homeless services center so that during the warmer months, it can be a drop-in day shelter where people can have access to resources, but they can also just get a shower, get a meal, charge their electronics, even do laundry. And then with a year-round operator at Cannon, which we just put out an RFP for, it comes then when the winter sets in, you can quickly pivot to that warming center during the winter months. The Guardians have run that shelter for the last 7 or 8 months. I think they've done a fantastic job. They're a provider that has really risen to the occasion of the kinds of services that we need our providers to provide. They have engaged with the Brown's Addition neighborhood so incredibly well, to the extent that that neighborhood was so happy with how the provider has been operating that shelter, that they wrote a resolution and sent it to the city council because they wanted to keep the guardians there as long as possible. But we do have to go through a competitive bidding process moving forward on that year-round operator. So they're going to apply for that. The other part of the shelter system that's changing is during COVID, we used CARES Act money, and under a COVID emergency, we had to continue to offer a roof over the head of our homeless and to make sure that COVID did not spread rampantly through that population. And so we had moved homeless from the library downtown because it was under renovation to the arena. And we ended up purchasing a building on Mission. It was the former Spokane Housing Authority building. And we now have that building operated by the Salvation Army. It's called the Way Out Shelter. It's been that emergency drop-in shelter, but it closes at the end of this month for about 4 months of renovations. And when it reopens this fall, it will be a program called a bridge housing program where people will be referred to. So if they've been working with counselors or outreach teams, and they've made a decision, they want to go to the next step of moving out of homelessness, we'll send them to the Way Out Shelter at Bridge Housing. That will be operated as well by the Salvation Army. So they've been operating as that day drop-in shelter, but they will also operate it as a bridge housing shelter. This is a program that I'm excited about because there's a level of accountability here. They get stabilized there. They live there 30, 60, 90 days with wraparound services that will get them to housing. And those services will include mental health, addiction, employment, job training, all of that. So that's really exciting. And then the other part of this plan is the young adult shelter. And that's for 18 to 24-year-old. We received a Department of Commerce grant to operate that. The Volunteers of America have been identified to be the operator of that shelter. We're looking for a facility. We have located one on the north side of town. It's close to SCC, Spokane Community College, because 18 to 24-year-olds, we want to make sure they get the services that they need to keep them off the street and not become the next generation of homeless. And so technical training, we're going to work with SCC to be able to offer that. Maybe if they have to get their GED, whatever services they need to prevent them from becoming homeless. That's a gap that is not being dealt with right now, but that's a demographic of the homeless population that seems to have the most success when they're reached earlier in life. So those are the fundamental changes that we made with our regional plan, with our shelter system. I announced this back in July, shared it with City Council in May, and we made the announcement last week. Some of the other things that we're doing to mitigate some of the issues that come with homelessness, especially when the city's been shut down for over a year, basically, because of COVID. We don't have people who work downtown, the tens of thousands of people who normally create the activity that disperses some of the issues that come with homelessness. We've not had that during COVID. We lost all of our cleanup crews that we contract with Geiger for 6 days a week, 4 to 8 crews. They were working before COVID hit. We lost all of that, completely shut down. So a lot of the tools in our toolbox were taken away from us during COVID. And that's exacerbated the problems that we're seeing downtown. Court system shut down. Community court shut down. 48 inmates low-level inmates from our jail, Spokane County Jail, were let out because of social distancing. And we weren't able to do a lot of what we needed to be able to do. But we're coming back. The good thing is we've got Johnnie Perkins, who I know a lot of you have met. He's our new city administrator. Comes from the great city of San Diego, which I know you guys refer to often as a city that's done a great job of addressing homelessness and mitigating some of the problems and issues that come along with that. That's why Johnnie's here. He has family here. He loves the city, and he wants to be able to duplicate the successes that he had in San Diego here. So we're really, really fortunate to have him. Some of the things that we announced last Thursday as well include doubling the city's litter crew. We're hiring 10 more people to deal with litter and graffiti because we don't have enough people to do that right now. And we have a lot of catching up to do because of the inactivity that we had downtown. We're also putting in 12 new, we call them the big belly garbage cans. DSP is helping us identify which areas need those garbage cans. Those are the solar powered, compressed. You can't break into them. but it allows people to be able to throw away trash in a receptacle and not on the streets. We're also working with a partner to clean on a regular basis. We're launching a pilot program on the Brown Street Viaduct, which is probably the most visible and the most challenging area of our city that people see when it comes to homelessness. And we're even having a media opportunity this afternoon to show the community and help media get the word out about what we're doing with that viaduct and the other viaducts downtown. We're working with DSP to do more sanitation in the viaducts. So those are some of the things that we're doing that I think are going to make a real difference. It's not going to happen overnight. These issues didn't happen weren't caused. It didn't happen overnight, but we need your help to be able to address a lot of these things and not only get caught up, but move forward. I am excited. By June 30th or earlier, our state's going to open up and our city's going to fully open. We're finally going to get, hopefully, people back downtown working again, businesses at 100% capacity, more people visiting downtown. And we want to make sure that it's comfortable and inviting. And so these are some of the strategies that we have. So just wanted to share that with you. I appreciate the work that you're all doing, and keep it up. And the city needs your help too. So thanks so much. You know, if Johnnie wanted to say anything, but
Sure, Mayor. Thank you. Chud, thank you for this opportunity. Mayor, thank you so much for the kind words. This is a great city. This is not San Diego. This is Spokane, Washington. And I am just proud and honored and blessed to be here. I think my family's maybe getting a little tired of me. I've been here for 6 weeks and we see each other quite a bit, but it's certainly a great experience. The mayor has an incredible vision, but it's more than a vision. It's a call to action. And I want to cover that a little bit because this is about making sure that Spokane, Washington is the cleanest, safest, and best city in America. And I don't say those words lightly. My father always said, actions speak louder than words. So let me talk about how action is speaking louder than words. The mayor tasked me when I got here to assess and evaluate where are we with our outreach in terms of litter removal, graffiti cleanup, encampments, our entire homeless efforts, not outside of the shelter, outside of that, what are we doing? And so we took a look at it. What we found was great staff, number one, but they were working Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 3:30. No weekends, Friday after 3:30, they were gone. 9 staff members, 7 permanent, 2 temp. The pod only consists of the police department, SPD, and code enforcement. No service providers. The officers were only working with the pods downtown 1 to 3 Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and 8 a.m. to 12 Tuesday and Thursday citywide. 2 staff members were charged with graffiti removal for the entire city. And Downtown Spokane Partnership, God bless them, the great job Mark Richard, Roy Colgan, and that group is doing, only ones doing power water sanitization. So what did we do? We presented to the mayor. She guided us with her vision and her leadership and her call to action. So here's what she announced last week, just to supplement what she said. We are going Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. starting July 1. We are going Saturday and Sunday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And I'll tell you, a lot of impetus for this was 2 things. When I talk about clean and safe, and the mayor talks about clean and safe. A few weeks ago, a rock went through a window at Greater Spokane, hit someone's desk. For the grace of God, they weren't there. Nobody got injured. Secondarily, a few Fridays ago, I went on a ride-along tour with the code enforcement team. I asked to go to Sprague and Erie because I heard there was a camp there. Well, I got there and there was a camp. There was also fire that started to break out. At that moment, talking to the mayor, we said, we're done, we're over. We're now going to start issuing citations and we're taking care of this today. So I called the chief of police, said, Chief, I need pedestrian interference citations issued immediately. We started talking about the law and if they were moving things and it left a little room for someone to get through. I said, Chief, doesn't matter. I want everyone here cited. And guess what? We're coming back tomorrow and we're going to cite them. Oh, and by the way, we're coming back the next day and we're going to cite them again. Fire Station 1 showed up. We put out the small, I call it a little campfire, but the point is it could have caused a greater infrastructure fire. We're done. We're over it. Saturday, Sunday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. starting July 1. As the mayor mentioned, doubling staff, going to 19. A city of 240,000, you got to have more than 9 people really combating this. So we're going to 19. The mayor mentioned big bellies. Want to thank Greater Spokane and the Downtown Spokane Partnership in helping us identify areas for those 12. We know where they're going to go now. We're just waiting for those orders to come in. Then we looked at the teams. The teams weren't balanced. So we have 4 teams. We're going to have a specific team for litter cleanup, specific team for graffiti removal, a specific team for encampment abatements, and a specific team for power wash sanitization. You can't just have one entity doing power wash sanitization. The city needs to play a role in that. And then there's the pods. And you can't have pods with just officers and code enforcement. So those are the steps we're taking starting July 1. Beautify Spokane, the clean and safe strategy, which will include pods that have service providers. We're going to be outreaching to service providers. We need them with us, writing out, talking to people. No one deserves to live on the street. No one deserves not to have a bed. Everyone has a mom and dad. And we want to be compassionate and passionate, but at the same time, we want to enforce laws that we have for those that choose to be on the street, that deal narcotics. I remember at Sprague and Erie, this gentleman had a bike shop going on, chop shop, if you will. He had 30 bikes there. I can't believe all those bikes were his. No, I don't want to disparage anyone, but it just didn't seem that those were all his bikes. So we need public safety with code enforcement and providers. And when I say service providers, and when the mayor we talk about service providers through the mayor's leadership, it's the job training, mental health, healthcare, education, housing, faith-based, everybody that we can get engaged to go out and offer opportunities to take someone transition out of homelessness. That's ultimately the goal. We want to be passionate, but at the same time, we're not going to let you go around Spokane and violate laws. That's not happening here anymore. Those days are over, and the mayor's commitment is that's not going to happen any longer. Burlington, Northern Santa Fe, boy, that's been an interesting thing. I remember getting off the freeway when I arrived here about a month or so ago, saw a lot of graffiti off the Vision Street, and we just can't have those things. We've got tourists, visitors. I think there's 22 conventions coming between now and the end of the year. We've got to have a statement and send a message. This is a friendly town for tourists, conventions, visitors, and our own residents to walk around downtown, enjoy the great hotels and the meals in our restaurants, but you got to be clean and safe. You got to be the best city in America, and that's where we're going. Citygate, I'm going to be having a conversation with Citygate. There's some issues there. We're going to work through those. I'm going to talk with Avista. Want to let them know what our plan is. See if we can encourage some funding and support from there. So just in summary, this mayor has an incredible vision, but it's more than a vision. It's a call to action. And Dad, God bless him, said, son, actions speak louder than words. And so what we're demonstrating, what this mayor is demonstrating, she has actions that are speaking louder than words. We're implementing them. Enough is enough. We're done. We're over it. If you're on the sidewalk blocking it, you're going to get pedestrian interference. In terms of the other things that we can use, sit in line, some of the other rules, we're working towards that as well. And the last piece of this is the community court. Boy, the community court has to be a partner in this. They're really important. We just can't issue a bunch of citations and nothing happens. So we're working through a lot of that. We're working through making sure the court is on board. We're going to be having those conversations as well. So I'm excited about this. You know, I remember in San Diego, Mayor Faulkner, I knew where he drove in from work from his house. And I always made sure potholes were filled. There was no graffiti or anything to make sure that he saw what we were doing. Then he started changing his route on me. and so I had to kind of talk to his detail to figure out where he was going so we could get ahead of that. But in all seriousness, beautify Spokane. This is going to be the cleanest and safest city in America for visitors, tourists, and residents to really enjoy, not just what we have downtown, by the way, but out in our neighborhoods, which is why the mayor's expanding our crews so we can make sure our neighborhoods and our communities receive the same treatment and the same presence as we're going to see downtown. So I appreciate that. I'm honored to be part of the Mayor Nadine Woodward administration. Great things lie ahead. Great things take time. extraordinary things take a little bit of patience. I know you all have been patient long enough. I would just ask, give us a little more time as we're coming out of COVID. I've just kind of arrived, if you will, but you're going to see things happen. You know, I'm accessible. You know, I'll talk to you about anything and respond. So I look forward to this incredible partnership in what truly is the finest city in America. Thank you.
Thank you both, Johnny and Mayor. Thank you for that. If you can't tell, the stake has been put in the ground, and we're going to move forward from there. I think there are just a couple questions I want to go, and I want to keep things moving too. One came from Darren Watkins. Any conversations around a 21-day inpatient treatment for those facing addiction?
Well, I think when Bridge Housing opens up at the Way Out Shelter on Mission, we're going to have the wraparound services that do address addiction. I don't know exactly what that program will look like, but we will bring in service providers to be able to offer addiction help.
And this question really isn't for you. It might be for from Mark Carlos and or Michael Cathcart Shea. And that is, where's the city council with this new action plan?
I don't know. To be perfectly frank, I don't know. I'm not sure that we've even discussed it. I can speak for myself and say I am absolutely enthused and invigorated to hear the plans going forward. I think it's going to be a big change that's been needed for quite some time. And as COVID kind of goes behind us, we're able to do a lot of this stuff. So I'm really ecstatic to see the new plan as we move forward.
Thanks, Michael. Mark, any comments from?
Yes, I could say for Betsy, we have been in conversations with Johnny and with Mayor for a long time. And I put in the chat that thank you, Mayor, for your spirit collaboration, because for the past 8 years, we haven't seen this between Mayor and City Council. So between Betsy meeting with all the providers one-on-one, we're actually going to go to City Gate on Thursday for their board meeting. Also with working with, working with CHHS and all the different departments, I think that we have everything that we need for wraparound services and for bridge housing. So I think that this is a new day here in City Hall.
Great, thank you both for that. You know, really, there's a question about the region and how we're going to bring them together. I see Ariel Anderson's on here. I'm going to have time for her to just share a couple comments, hopefully at the end, in regards to the Valley's participation. I know the county has really stepped up and working so closely with the mayor and her administration. That was where a lot of that announcement came. My challenge to both you, Mayor and Johnny, is reach out to us, use us. We all want the same thing. And you know, when you need a rally point, we're there for you. I want you to know that, because we all are in it together. Sometimes we're not going to agree, but in the end, we all want to be the safest and cleanest city in the US. So with that, thank you both. Thank you, Mayor, for taking time this morning. Johnny, thank you. You can see the passion, and I'm glad you're here from San Diego. We'll keep you here in Spokane now. Just don't leave anywhere during January or December when December or January when the weather changes on us.
Hey.
All right, so let's go ahead. I'm going to move on. I'll get back to the agenda and trying to keep things on track. For those of you that don't know, Family Promise of Spokane is a provider that is doing an absolutely amazing job. And when I say amazing, they track their return on investment. They are accountable for what the work they do, and they can show the impact. And the way they do this is with a leader that came in here that has, I feel from my perspective, has done amazing, amazing work. And both the work that Family Promise Spokane is doing, but also changing that conversation to what it means to understand, to track, to account for, and to be able to show that we're moving homeless on. And so I think Spokane's pretty fortunate to have this guy here. I don't want to say anymore. Joe Ader, if you don't mind, you can take it over from here. I know you want to share screen, and hopefully you can do that. I'll go off share here.
All right. All right, thank you everybody for having me. My name's Joe Ader. I'm Executive Director of Family Promises Spokane. Hopefully you can see my logo. Raise your hand if you can see the logo of us there. Perfect. Family Promise, we've been in Spokane for 24 years. And until 2016, we were just a small organization. We originally started as an innovative shelter model, which housed families in local church buildings at night, in faith buildings that were being unused most of the time. And so We ran that program successfully for 23 years until COVID put a pause on that. But we also have several other shelter models and a lot of other things that we do. But I want to give you a little bit of a background and then get into data, because that's what our discussion was supposed to be today, is how can we use data to really move the needle forward? Because you can't manage what you don't measure. Okay, you can't manage what you don't measure. I say that all the time. I say that to staff, and I think Chud, you stole that saying from me the other day with your post. So that's fine. You could steal that. But so let's talk a little bit about what we do. When most people think of homelessness in our community, when they talk about the homeless, this is kind of the picture that they have in their mind. They've got this single man sitting on the side of the road underneath the Brown Street Bridge or with a sign. What they don't think of is this. And this is what we deal with. This is the family homelessness, which represents 35% of the homeless in our country. And that number is actually higher locally. So those that are family members and kids dealing with homelessness, every kid that you see in this picture has been in a homeless shelter in our city in the last year and a half, and now has exited to permanent housing of their own. So these are real families, real kids. This isn't, staged pictures. This is us. So 1 in every 25 students in Spokane County in 2019, so before the pandemic, experienced homelessness at some point that school year. 1 in 25. So every school that you drive past, one student from every classroom almost experienced homelessness just in the year 2019. That's 3,108 students. So when you add their little brothers and sisters and parents into the mix, we're probably talking somewhere around 12,000 people in a family unit that experience some type of unstable housing, some type of homelessness every year in our county. That's a big number that nobody talks about. And there's reasons for that, right? It's not safe to have your kids downtown. And so you just don't see kids on the street downtown. They're sleeping in cars, they're sleeping in tents, they are couch surfing, moving around to different places. But because you don't see them, you don't think about them, and they're not thought about. So actually kids and families are called the hidden homeless across the country. So here at Family Promise, our mission is to equip families and communities to end the cycle of homelessness. Notice how it doesn't say run shelters there. We want to end homelessness. And so that's a big focus of ours, is really getting people, not just sheltering those that need shelter, but getting them into housing. And we do that at a higher rate than anybody else. And that's really an emphasis of ours. We house 2.5 times more people than any of the other emergency shelters. And we really focus on that. And that's our success measure. So it's not, you don't hear us report how many bed nights we had or how many meals we served. We report how many people did we get into housing. And that's the shift I think that would be really important for us to make as a community, is really tracking exits to permanent and really reporting on that and focusing on that as a community. The other thing that we do, or the other things that we do, is we prevent families from becoming homeless in the first place. We were the first agency to start a rental assistance program in Spokane County, which this year is going to be huge with the eviction moratorium running out. And I'll show you guys a tool that for you property owners, you landlords, that you can use to help get your tenants rental assistance. And you can find that resource, and I'll show that right at the end here as we wrap up. But the other 2 areas we focus on is providing shelter for families that are experiencing homelessness. We do that in 3 different models. One model is an emergency walk-in shelter, which is in the old Casano's Italian Grocery and Deli building. We purchased that in 2019. And that is an emergency shelter for anybody that's caring for a child or who is pregnant, can walk in there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and receive services. And so that's the emergency family shelter. It's also called Open Doors. We also have neighborhood shelters, which are smaller site shelters that are tucked into communities. And most of the neighbors don't even realize it's a shelter because it's just 3 to 4 families at a time. And it doesn't strike in your mind that it's a shelter. So there's one in the South Perry district. There's 2 off of Mission. One of them will be opening up actually in just a week here. And I'll show you more about that in a second. But the reason why we have that smaller site shelter is we see better outcomes from that. So we see about 40% of our guests from the emergency shelter leaving to permanent housing. When we move them to the smaller site location, the neighborhood site, we see 95% leaving to housing of their own. So because we track that number, we know, okay, if we open up more smaller sites, we move families to more of those, we will see higher outcomes. And I'll show you some of that data in a minute. And then our third shelter model is that community church rotational model, which we will be opening back up in 2022 and housing families in unused church buildings at night. And that will open back up again. And we also see really high success rates from that program in the 90% range and higher exiting to permanent housing. The last area here is preparation, preparing families for a stable life after they leave shelter. Just because you get somebody in an apartment doesn't mean that they're stable, right? There's a lot of other issues going on. And so we actually walk with our families for 2 years after they leave the shelter, which means that we help them stabilize in the period where they're most likely to return to homelessness. And if we can help a family stabilize then, their chances of returning to homelessness drop from about 50-50 to about 6%. So there's a major difference if you actually work with families for after they leave the shelter to stabilize them. And really on the prevention side, because we work with kids, the kids in that picture that I showed you just 2 slides ago, those kids are the most likely future street homeless. I'm gonna say that again. Those kids are our most likely future street homeless. So if we can stabilize them now, 5, 10, 15 years from now, we could prevent them from being the next version of street homeless. A lot of what we see today is what we didn't do 10 and 15 years ago. And so there's one side of bailing water out of the boat, but there's another side of plugging the leak. And we need to do both in our community. And so a lot of that focus on children is really important. It's really expensive to have people homeless with emergency services, with police, fire services, with case management. It's estimated that it costs about $35,000 a year per person that experiences homelessness to a community. So if we can prevent that, or we can get people housed, the major cost savings to our community there. Just in 2019, the people that we got housed, which was 462, or prevented from becoming homeless, probably saved our community $8 million the following year. So there's a cost benefit to this work and to really getting good at this work. All right, this is Oliver. Everybody say hi to Oliver. Oliver, I'm showing him to you because Oliver was born into homelessness. And most people don't think of infants when they think of homelessness, but actually the largest single age demographic we serve is this under 1 year old. This is under 1 year old right here. So since 2018, we've served just under 100 babies in homelessness in our community. 42% of our guests are under the age of 10. And then 52% of the guests we serve are under the age of 18. So we're talking kids when we're looking at this. And this is a significant thing. And so being able to track our numbers, being able to track statistics, we know, okay, we've got newborns in a mass shelter environment. It's not the right environment for them. They can be not just COVID, but any illness they can contract and then potentially die from. Additionally, they cry all night long. And when you have them in a mass shelter, when one person has a baby, everybody's got a crying baby. So the next shelter that we're opening actually next week is a shelter just for families with newborns. And it'll take 5 families at a time. and it's located just off of Division on Mission in one of the old houses there by Gonzaga, tucked away in that community, and it'll be families with newborns. That's the focus of that one. Let me show you. The impacts of homelessness on kids is pretty severe. They are 3 times more likely to drop out of school. They are 5 times more likely to be convicted of a violent crime. They are 7 times more likely to attempt suicide than the general population. So if we can prevent kids from becoming homeless in the first place and their families, we want to do that. And then if we can reduce the length of stay and the severity of homelessness, we want to do that as well, so that we get these kids back into housing. This is just a real quick, just reality check. In 2016, when homelessness got so high for families, we needed to open an emergency shelter just for families. Evictions that year were 1 in every 40. Currently, right now, renters in Spokane, 1 in every 5 is late on their rent payments due to the COVID crisis. And so we could be seeing potentially up to 20% of renters moving after the eviction moratorium runs out or being evicted. And that is a big concern because there's no space. We have been full in our shelters for months, particularly on the family side. And so even one new family coming into homelessness is going to be an issue for us. And we're probably going to see, even with all the rental assistance that's coming out, we are going to see dozens and dozens more, even not hundreds more people in family units experience homelessness this next 3 to 6 months. So that's a big concern. And so we've been rapidly trying to open up new locations. So we have our emergency shelter, which is at 2002 East Mission. We have the South Perry location, which is a smaller site location. We have a Mission House location. The new infant shelter opens up next week. And then we are looking at neighborhood sites, and this comes back to the regional model. Almost 17% of our guests come from Spokane Valley. And so we're looking for locations in Spokane Valley for the next neighborhood site, maybe the end of this year, beginning of next year, as well as 9% come from Cheney. And so we are looking at Cheney locations as well for moving forward. We actually had a 3-year plan to do this that we started at the beginning of 2020, right before the pandemic hit. And so we've escalated the speed on that to try to get more of these sites open. Okay, I want to get to some of the data stuff because that's really what we wanted to talk about today. Give me 1 second here. So we really invest in data at Family Promise. It's been a focus of ours. And so we track and we actually keep metrics on everything with our families and what's happening. So this is statistics from July of 2019 through today. We've served 764 guests through our shelters. The average bed night in that time period was 43 days. So the average days that families are spending in shelter and homelessness is 43 days in that time period. And because we keep track of our data, we're able to show things like what percentage of our guests are leaving to permanent housing, how many of the guests are going to other types of destinations. We're able to see things like, there's this narrative that, people are moving to Spokane that are homeless. Well, our stats just don't bear that out, at least on the family shelter side. So you can see most of our guests are local in a large way, a large part. And then you also get really into, you can get some really important information like racial backgrounds as well as child backgrounds and outcomes. But when you compare over time, so we just looked at, I'm going to go back to this chart. So we looked at this is from July of 2019 till now. But if we change that to the last 90 days, look at that. So we're moving way more higher percentage of people into housing in the past 90 days than we did over the time period. So we're getting better at getting people into permanent housing. But if we go up here, we see, but they're staying in shelter longer, 64 days compared to the 43 for that larger time period. So this has to do with COVID. They're in shelter longer, and that's a big issue because the longer somebody stays in shelter, that's one bed that doesn't get to be reused. And so there's two ways that you can increase capacity. You can build bigger shelters and add more beds, or you can reduce the average length of stay in homelessness and accomplish the same thing. And so that's a concern for us, the longer time period that we're seeing right now. And we want to push towards changing that. Okay, so that's looking at past data and making judgments, but that's kind of like driving through the rearview mirror of looking at what has happened and then moving things forward. What we are starting to do, and this is really innovative, is take our data and try to make predictions from it. And using it to make predictive analytic models. And so let me explain that. So we took 2 years of our data and we said, okay, of those 2 years, which families moved into permanent housing and what were their characteristics the day that they arrived? And then we used computer modeling, just like you would see at Amazon, where they predict what you're going to buy next, or Facebook, to say what were the for year 3, what would we predict would be our outcomes based on family characteristics? And then we estimated, or we came up with what was the actuals of that to see if you can use computer analytics to predict homelessness and homeless outcomes. And this is what we got. So the orange line was what the computer predicted. The blue line is what actually happened. What we discovered was our model was 82% accurate. Okay, so this is what that means. You can actually use some computer analytic modeling on day 1 to change case management for different families based on what their characteristics are. And by doing that, you can increase outcomes overall. So same way you would use modeling in a business, you can predict this in homelessness too, which was a huge revelation. We're the first people to do this in this type of way. We've now refined the model to where all of the different outcomes are predictable between 83% and 97% accuracy on the characteristics the day the family arrives. So here's what that allows us to start doing is predictive case management. So using this to help our case managers change the way they case manage for different families to improve outcomes for those families. The second one is working to create a community-wide prediction tool of which families or which households are most likely to be evicted or likely to become homeless in the future, so that we can maybe get resources to them further upstream rather than on the street, rather than waiting for them to walk in the door of the shelter. Can we meet them further ahead of time? And then lastly, we're collecting data through the rental assistance portal, which is, I'll show you in just a second, which is giving us where people are from that are needing rental assistance, which will allow us to better target those areas in the future. So I'm going to share that with you guys right now. So if you go to SpokaneHousingAssistance.org, SpokaneHousingAssistance.org, it'll take you to this page. And for you or any tenant that you know or any landlord that you know, they can search for rental assistance eligibility there and find rental assistance that might be available to them across the community. Not just our programs, but any program that is serving Spokane County will be listed on there in the next couple of weeks. We've got a handful on there right now and are adding more daily. And then if they are a family, they actually qualify for us. They can apply directly online. You don't have to do paperwork back and forth. It's all digitized and online so that we can get resources to the ground as fast as possible before this eviction moratorium runs out. All right. So I went fast there, guys, and threw a lot of information out at you. But I'd love questions if we've got time for it, Chad.
Yeah, let's see if there are any questions. I've got a chance to tour a couple times, and I will tell you that when you even dig deeper into the data, you start getting the understanding of what happens, like what the predictability model is and what we can do. But even more so, if you can imagine taking that return on investment report that he had, that Joe shared with us, and we put it on each provider and held them accountable for what they're producing. And I can tell you, like Volunteers of America, they're high as well, right, Joe? I mean, they do a pretty good job, not your level, but they're doing a good job. But this is where, and I know whether Catholic Charities is on here or not, this is what I wanted. This is what I want to see. I want to see that because they're obviously sort of the big one on the block here that we see, you know, and that's what I want is a return and accountability. And if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And Joe, you're doing a good job. But any questions you might have out there, I don't see any in chat, and I'm really wanting to keep this thing on a timely manner. Get them to me if you do. Joe's great. Stop by Family Promise if you want. I will tell you, I both times I've been there, I felt like I had to donate just because I believe in so much what they're doing because it's a good return on investment. So Joe, thank you for chiming in. Thanks for the work you're doing. Keep serving us. Keep taking care of us. You're definitely part of the solution to helping this. So with that, we're coming on it. I do know that there was a question about the regional approach, and on the call today or on the Zoom today, we have Deputy Mayor Brandy Peets from the Spokane Valley. There's a lot happening, and I know the perception is that the Valley isn't doing anything, but that's not. It's changing. There's they made a big hire about 2-3 months ago, and I'm excited about what they're doing. But I would turn it over to Brandy if you're on, if you can share the latest of what's going on with the Valley.
Of course. Thank you, Chud, for allowing me to participate in this. And just like you said, there is a belief out there that the Spokane Valley doesn't contribute, but I'll just chime into that and say that we've always contributed financially, whether it be through HaHa funds or the document recording fees. We've always put into that regional system. And I do want to echo some of the comments from earlier that because of the pandemic, we were able to come together as a region and not just put in financially, but also have a say and take some ownership of this, because obviously the homeless situation doesn't know boundaries. So just a couple of things, also touching on that new position that we just created. We have our housing outreach coordinator, and her name is Ariel Anderson, and she came from SNAP, and she's doing a great job. And so far, we've had some people who are willing to participate in resources, and so we've been able to get them connected. Unfortunately, there are, those ones who refuse to participate. So we're trying to figure out how to navigate that situation. But we also did just appoint Ariel also to the HCDAC, which is the Housing and Community Development Advisory Committee. And so we were able to add some representatives to that. We now have 4. We also just last night, appointed Amanda Tenio, I believe is how you say her last name. She used to work for Liberty Lake as a planning person, and then she also has experienced homelessness. And so she's got both sides of that situation. And so we're really excited to see what she can do with that. I was just informed yesterday that our city manager contracted some more beds for some of the people that we are getting into resources. And so we're making great strides. And I'll just say too, our mayor, Ben Wick, and our city manager, Mark Calhoun, have participated in those regional governance work groups since the beginning. They've been on those, whether they were weekly or bi-weekly, and they're still participating with those. So again, there's a misconception out there that we're not participating, but I do appreciate the opportunity to be able to come together and work on these, because this is a regional issue. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brandy. And just, keep keep connected with us and let us know if there's support or help from here, because there's several of us that have properties out in the valley as well. So with that, we're like 10:01 right now, and I really want to respect the time, but I feel neglecting the group by not having that opening up a forum or discussion. And so I want to explore that as a possibility next time. Maybe we just have the gang out in Valdez speak about the gangs, and then we open it up, because there's a lot of ideas out there, we're working on some solutions. And I will tell you, the mayor has adopted some of the ideas that we've come together with, but I think we're seeing a lot more. I think we're at the front end of this. And like I said, I really do believe when Johnnie Perkins was hired, he got here. I can tell you, I know Sheldon's not on anymore. He texts and calls us all the time. He wants to know what's the latest, where we at. Sheldon does that daily hotspot assessment, and we see ebbs and flows with the amount of litter, the amount of graffiti, and when he sees it go backwards, he's all over it. And so I feel like things are going. I know the county's behind it, supporting it, and I think right now it's just education coming together and sticking together. So with that, I think I'll call an end to it. Just remember that we're going to be the cleanest and safest city. We got work to do. I want to say kudos to the folks down at the Cannon Street Shelter because of what they've done with their neighborhood group. I would challenge the volunteers or Salvation Army to do what they're doing in the neighborhood around like the Ways Out shelter that's not being done right now. I feel like there's a lot going on there. So there's a good neighbor piece of all of us that we have an obligation to take care of what we do. So I will thank you for being part of this, and we'll just keep this conversation going. You all have a good day, and chime in at any time, because we're in this together. Thank you.
Yeah, have a good day.
Thank you all. Come for a visit if you want to.
Yeah, go see Joe. You'll be impressed.